Our oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's surface and contain more life than any other place on the planet. We know that oceans have a huge influence on the weather and the environment. However, they have also become a giant global conveyor belt of plastic waste. It's just over 100 years since the first completely synthetic plastic was developed. In that relatively short period of time, plastic has made its way into all aspects of our life. And while plastic has many advantages, its inability to break down naturally over time is causing big problems out at sea. Since the plastic age began, hundreds of millions of tons of plastic waste have been dumped in our oceans. And unfortunately, this figure is on target to increase tenfold in the next decade. As this incredible NASA video shows, the plastics have tended to collect in key spots around the globe called gyres, such as the Pacific Trash Vortex.
We can also see this in a computational model of ocean currents called ECHO-2. We release particles evenly around the world and let the modeled currents carry the particles. The particles from the model also migrate to the garbage patches.
The problem of plastic in our water is not confined to larger items. Researchers at the Galway Mayo Institute of Technology are investigating the relatively new phenomenon of microplastics.
Microplastics are small fragments of plastic. They can either be produced directly as small plastic particles, or they can arise from the fragmentation of larger pieces of plastic. It's in our clothing, it's in our food packaging, it's in our cars, in manufacturing of parts of cars.
Toothpaste, shampoo.
Yes, yeah.
Things that don't really necessarily need plastic in them.
Yes, sometimes those particles are doing no job at all, they're just colour. And, we could really do without that.
Microplastics, as the name suggests, are tiny particles of plastic and can be found in a wide range of unexpected places, from facial and body scrubs to your cuddly fleece jacket. In fact, when washed, the average fleece jacket can produce up to 2,000 plastic fibres. And even when plastic is recycled, it's often simply shredded into smaller pieces, which can also end up washed down the drain and ultimately out to sea. So what are the consequences of this for our seas and marine life?
The consequences are many. There's direct consequences for the animals that interact with those plastics. They can mistake them for food and eat them. Now that's kind of balanced by the fact that they excrete them as well. And also, if they're retained, these plastics absorb chemicals, or chemicals are actually put into the plastics during manufacture. Those chemicals can have toxic effects on the organisms as well. And that can transfer up through the food chains as well, with potential consequences for humans if it ends up in our food chain.
Research into the environmental impact of microplastics is relatively new. Dr. Amy Lusher undertook a major study to examine levels of microplastics in the seas around Ireland.
I moved to Galway 3 years ago to study microplastics and their distribution and implications on the marine environment, mainly because there hadn't been any studies previous to the research that we were going to do, and the North East Atlantic, there was just kind of this gap on a map.
So that meant you had to go out to sea?
It did, yes. I went to sea on the Celtic Explorer for a few months, and we found microplastics in almost every sample that we took at sea.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Every sample?
Almost every, yeah.
There's microplastics everywhere in the North East Atlantic?
Yes. So my research, we've looked at a group of fish called mesopelagic fish, and we found microplastic in 11% of the fish that we studied. We took out their whole digestive tract and dissolved it, so we knew that whatever we found in our sample was going to have come from inside the animal.
Are they fish that we ingest?
The mesopelagic fish, not at the moment. However, we did find plastic in commercially sourced fish from previous studies we've done. In the English Channel, we found 36% of the fish we looked at to have microplastics, again, in their stomachs.
It's scary. I eat a lot of fish.
It is scary because we still don't know the answers. It's a very new area of research. 10 years ago, we didn't know that microplastics were in the marine environment.
As researchers try to understand the impact of microplastics on marine life, the other question is, what can be done to turn things around?
I think we need to work a lot more on legislation and work a lot more on recycling and reusing plastics and trying to get away from single-use plastics and plastics that aren't necessarily required in our day-to-day lives.
The solutions are actually in our hands. We choose to throw away plastics the way we do, and if we change that behaviour, change the way we process plastics in the environment, we can actually really arrest this problem.